Thank you to Vendoo for sponsoring today's video. Hi everybody, I am back with another episode of my Thriftcast. This is episode number 2. I'm trying to do it on a weekly basis, but I'm not quite there yet, but I'm still calling it weekly Thriftcast because maybe that will just encourage me to get on the ball. So today's going to be pretty heavy on the Q&A because I recently posted on Instagram and got a bunch of questions from you guys, which I really love. Okay, Big City Treasures on Instagram asked me, at what point did you register your business as an LLC / get a business account? We decided to do an LLC for LORIBOSTONFOUND when my website went live. Because I was starting to sell things off of major platforms like Poshmark, eBay, and such, I felt that put me at a little bit more risk. So we decided to do an LLC for that. We're actually doing a little family project right now. It's actually my husband's baby, but he is working on a private label for something. I'm going to be talking more about it here. And he's just doing his business under my LLC since we already have it. So it has come in handy at times, but it is a cost, and I think it varies from state to state. We didn't really think that I needed an LLC until I started selling things on my website, which has been down for a very long time, but we need to get it up and running for when my husband gets his stuff off the ground. And I think that's going to be probably late summer or early fall. So stay tuned for that. Next up, Bookinpups _ asked, Posh live shows hurting regular sales? ? I think that's a question we all have. I don't have a definitive answer for that. I do know that Posh live sales pop up on my phone a ridiculous amount. So I know that a lot of people are having Posh live sales. I am not. I don't know what I'm waiting for. But my sales have also been slow. But I can never just pinpoint one thing and say it's because of this. Do I think Posh live shows are helping our sales? Probably not. But it's also a time of year for me that tends to slow down a bit. People are heading outside again. I feel like we are full force back into the swing of things post-pandemic. I find that my sales are always better. Not always better, but I enjoy sourcing more for fall and winter boots, sweaters, jackets, more substantial pieces that go for a lot more money than like cut-off shorts and bathing suits. And not that there's not value in those things. I just find that my return is often better on coats and boots and things like that. And I'm actually running a sale on those items in my closet right now because I'm overloaded with sweaters and jackets and stuff like that. And it's just time to like move things out. Cap563 wrote, do you find that Posh live shows are distracting to potential buyers? I never watch live shows. I probably should do a little bit more market research before I hop on here and talk. But the few that I've tuned into, I have found to be extremely uneventful. So I kind of log off. The only Posh live show that I hung around for was Jenna from Empty Hanger. She's somebody I've been following for years. She doesn't typically do Posh live shows. And she happened to be on one day. So I hopped on. I'm very used to Jenna being on Whatnot. So it was similar to what I've seen her do on Whatnot. And she did a great job. It was her first live show and she was learning as she went. And she gave me some hope that maybe one day I will do it as well. But other than Jenna's, I haven't really been on any live shows. Let me know in the comments if you're watching a lot of Posh live shows. Okay, I love the hypothetical questions. And my friend Heidi from Restyle Secrets is always good for her hypotheticals. She asks, if you had to give up selling one category, shoes or denim, which would it be? That is a tough question because I like to sell both of those categories. And I'm going to give a totally non-committal answer. From a storage aspect, shoes in a second I would give up because shoes are bulky and they take up a lot of space and I'm tripping over shoes all the time. But shoes give a really great return, so I do love to sell shoes. Some of my highest profit margins are with shoes. Denim is very simple to store, but I don't love photographing denim, but it's really easy to store and also a good profit margin. Sometimes I feel like if I just focused on denim, I could have a great business and I often wonder about getting rid of everything except for one category and how I would manage that and how it would change my business if I could just hyper focus on one category. But I am like jack of all trades, master of none, like across the board in my life, because I just like to try a lot of different things. So I don't think I'll ever be that person to just zone in on one category, but I can see the appeal in that. So Heidi, which one would I give up? I feel like from a business standpoint, I would give up denim because I think my profit margins are better with shoes. However, from an ease of storage and inventory, I would give up shoes because, yeah, what I just said. Great question. What about you guys? Would you give up shoes or denim if you had to pick one category? Another question from Heidi. What have you learned about yourself since empty nest? I have learned that I don't mind a quiet, clean house. That's what I have learned. I miss my children all the time, and I love hearing from them, and I love when they're home. But it very much reminds me of how summer and back to school was. I always used to say, and you've probably heard me say it on this channel before, back in the day when I had all my kids at home, I love the end of the school year because I love like losing the structure and letting the kids sleep in and not having to nag them about assignments and not having to make school lunches and all that. I love the end of the year for that. But then I love back to school as well, because then they all go back and then we get the structure back and, you know, I have some routine back in my life. I kind of feel the same way as an empty nester. I'm starting to gear up right now because it's mid-April and Angie flies home from Spain on the 28th of April. She's going to go to Penn State for a little bit, but then she'll be home first week in May. And Rocco will also be home first week in May. And then it's, you know, the groceries change, the cleaning changes, like the kitchen's always a mess. I'll go to bed and I'll wake up and I'll be climbing over like 20-year-old bodies in the basement. I don't know how I'm going to work it with Tina because she works during the week and Rocco often has friends sleep over. So that's always an issue in the summer. So it's very easy to have the space to myself, but I always miss the kids. So I'm always happy when they're home and I'm always not terribly sad when they go back to their homes and I get the structure back. So I think I'm liking it more than I thought I would is the shorter answer. It's great. I think this is a really good question. I don't even know how I'm going to answer it. A find for you asked, due to inflation, especially in Goodwill, do you think resellers should raise their sale price too? That is a really good question. And I don't know. I kind of feel like due to inflation, people have less money to spend. So if we're raising our prices for reselling, I think that could potentially hurt our business. It might be a time that we have to accept that we may be having smaller profit margins, or it may just mean that we need to shop smarter depending on our budget. Maybe instead of going out and buying 20 items in a week or whatever item you're used to buying, you cut that by a certain percentage and you only take home things with really incredible comps. I think whenever things like this happen, it requires us to be more creative and be better planners. And I am not great at that. And that's one thing I've learned about reselling is no matter what you think you know about reselling or what you actually do know about reselling and about brands, things are always changing. Brands that are popular are changing, styles are changing, prices are changing. And I think with reselling, it's getting more and more popular. I think reselling really got popular during the pandemic. And I wonder how many of the people who were reselling from home because they weren't able to go out to their jobs or they were just home for long periods of time, so they decided to clear out their closets. I would love to see a statistic on how the number of resellers increased during the pandemic and then what it looks like right now. But in general, I think that a lot more people are in the reselling game, including retailers. And most certainly the prices are going up at the thrift store, but that doesn't mean you can't still source inexpensively, like whether you're sourcing from your own closet or you're leaning on maybe relatives or telling friends. I always find if you're creative and resourceful, you will always be able to survive in this business. But it's not easy. It is a grind, and I think that sometimes we make it look easy if all the reels that we post on Instagram, or myself included when I do YouTube videos, like I found this and this is worth $200 or it flipped for this much money. We are always showcasing the really good things, but the truth of this business is it's a lot of those bread and butters brands, those $25 flips that are moving our business forward. And the real home runs that are huge profits in the triple digits, those are fewer and far between. I don't think that this business is easy at all. And I particularly think it's difficult for people who are doing it full time and relying on this income to pay bills because it is somewhat inconsistent. I think it's really great to have as many streams of income as you can. For me, I have YouTube, I have sponsorships on YouTube and sometimes on Instagram. You can get paid through Instagram Reels. I don't know what the qualifications are. I've made anywhere between like $50 and like $150 in a month. It's not a lot of money, and I don't put out a lot of Reels. So I do think there are people that are making it work on Instagram. Maybe having some business arrangements with local consignment stores with stuff that's not selling for you online. Maybe you could sell at an antique booth or through consignment stores, but the more streams of income you have, I think the better for your business, because then you're not solely relying on one platform. So this would be a good time to mention today's sponsor, which I wasn't even planning on talking about them right now, but it really does make sense, because one way to make sure that you are covering more bases and not having all your eggs in one basket is to cross-list your items. So today's video is sponsored by Vendoo. Vendoo is a cross-listing service that allows you to cross-post your listings to 10 marketplaces. I also use Vendoo for a lot of my analytics. I can also create drafts when I'm outsourcing. When I'm at a thrift store, I can write my cost of goods right in the app as I'm thrifting. And then I can also, if I'm running comps in the thrift store, also record what I might like to sell that item for. It's actually really a time saver if you're out and you're sourcing, and then you take your information that you're getting while you're outsourcing, if you're running comps, and enter them into Vendoo. It's a great way to save some time when you get home. If you'd like to give Vendoo a try, you can click the link in my description and save 25% off your first month of service. Vendoo is really user-friendly as well. Vendoo will tell you where your items are listed, in which marketplaces they sell on. When you sell an item and you have Vendoo's relist, delist feature, you can mark it sold while you're on the go, wherever you are, and it will delist automatically from other platforms. They have the technology that they're always working on making the app better. They're always adding more platforms. I think they're also adding Vestiaire collection, which I'm really excited about, because this is an upscale platform. I haven't been using the Real as much because their payouts have been not good at all. So I have a collection of higher end items that I would like to list on a platform that caters to higher end brands, and I haven't really had a home for these pieces, and so I'm excited to get an account with Vestiaire Collection, and that is the newest platform that Vendoo has added. So they're just always adding new platforms and new features, and I can't imagine my business without them. So give them a try. Be sure to click the link in my description and get started with Vendoo today. Snow Lori asked, how long do you spend in an average thrift store? Maybe she meant on average in a thrift store. When do you run out of steam? And I feel like I run out of time before I run out of steam 95% of the time. For somebody who's kind of low energy, I'm not like a real high energy person. I have an enormous amount of stamina when it comes to thrifting. Although I'm going to be 50 on my next birthday this July, and I definitely don't have the stamina for the bins that I used to have when I was 45 and started in this profession. I still can hang for a long time, but I think what I've realized now is I know how much work comes after thrifting at the bins, as far as like research and washing things and prepping them. And I don't even do the photographs in large part anymore. You know, if it's a Sunday night and you know you have to get up and work on Monday, you're that much more tired on Sunday night. But if you have the day off, you feel like you could be up all night. Sorry, my shadow is pretty bad here. It's kind of like that for the bins. I know how much work it's going to be, so it makes me a little bit more tired. I feel like if I'm doing well at a store, that gives me energy and it's a little bit of an adrenaline rush. So I keep on thrifting so I could keep on going and keep on going. I get tired and burnt out a little bit. It kind of happened today at Savers. My assistant Tina was here. She was staying with the puppy and I was all excited because I had this window to go thrifting because I haven't been able to thrift as much with a puppy, but we'll talk about that later. And then of course I got there and I wasn't finding anything. The last time I went to Savers, I literally had 90 minutes to shop because Lumpy was home in the crate. So I was putting time constraints on myself and I found a ton of stuff. Like I felt like I could have stayed there all day. Today I had someone watching the dog and I had this opportunity to do some shopping and I could find nothing. I probably spend on average 2 to 3 hours in a thrift store, on average, easily. The first hour I feel like goes by in the blink of an eye. I go to Savers a lot. My local Savers is a pretty good size. There's a lot of ground to cover there. I could easily be in there for 3 hours. If I drive all the way to the bins with my girlfriend Kim, we could stay all day together because we can take a break. We can go get Starbucks or Jersey Mike's across the street. And then come back for more. The bins used to be open later so you could do really long days there, but the bins definitely tire me out. So I would say depends on the store, depends on what I'm finding, depends on, you know, what my time constraints are to get home. I'm always, you know, waiting to do the next thing. Like, oh, I can thrift for 3 hours, but then I need to go home and film and edit and do shipping. Or I have dinner plans, but I can thrift for 2 hours. I rarely these days, have like just an open-ended, I can thrift all day. But if I have those days, I can definitely spend the time thrifting, like without a problem. It's my superpower. Bad and Bougie Vintage asked, how do you balance everything? Not very well, to be honest. I mean, I am able to do what I do on YouTube, on Instagram, in Poshmark and everything because I have amazing people around me. And that has been a theme to my life. I am a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl. And I've always surrounded myself with organized people. I happen to marry somebody who is way more on top of things than me. I mean, Jay is honestly part of the reason that a big part of the reason that I can do what I can do. As I mentioned earlier, he set me up with my LLC. He set me up with my payroll company that I just wouldn't even know where to begin. He ordered checks for me. He does all of my accounting. I literally hand him everything. He makes it so much easier for me. There's no way that I would be where I am in my business without Jay, who uses a very different part of his brain than I use. And we're just a really good combo. So whenever anybody says, what's your best advice for reselling? I say, marry an accountant. One of the things with balancing stuff is, and I didn't learn this until I was a little bit further in my journey as a reseller, is to delegate as much as you can the things that you don't enjoy doing or you don't have time to do, or things that can be duplicated. My friend Kim is probably the closest person who can source like I do because we've gone sourcing so many times together. She now knows a lot of the brands that I look for, but I haven't like formally trained anybody to source. One of the strategies that Kim uses when she thrifts with me is if she's within an earshot, she just goes through brands and she'll say brands out loud of the items that look interesting to her. And half the time I'm like half listening, but if she says a brand, I'm like, oh, Everlane, sure, grab that. Or yes, that brand's great. Or and she'll bring things to me and she'll have 6 items and we'll look through everything, and I say yes to some and no to some, and she's learned the things that I like to pick up, and I've learned from Kim. I mean, she has a great eye. So she's probably the only person I've trained informally to source for me. We usually shop together, so she's not an employee. She's just a great friend who loves to go thrifting with me. I'm very lucky for that. But sourcing, I generally think is something only I can do as far as my business goes right now. YouTube is another thing that somebody can't do for me. I could hire an editor, but I enjoy doing my own editing. But in order to balance everything, if you feel like you're out of balance with something, kind of look to where the bottlenecks are in your business. For me, the bottleneck was definitely getting my inventory put away into the inventory bins and photographing and keeping up with the inventory as it came in, because I would go sourcing. That would take time out of my day. I would come home. I really enjoy doing the research part, like, grabbing comps and researching brands. I'm really interested in that piece of the business. So that I like to do. And then of course I'm prepping stuff, washing them, getting them ready. And then I film videos, and then it gets placed in an area where they now get photographed. That was kind of where I would get stuck. So I always had a huge rack of backlog. I've had high school students working for me for years, but nobody as efficient and incredible and committed as Tina is right now. So I feel extremely lucky to have Tina working with me. We worked side by side at American Girl for years, and we had a great rhythm together. But we're both very, I think, like, upbeat and positive. I think we both try to find the good in things. But Tina is very much more organized than I am. She really takes pride in the inventory, and it like bothers her to have drafts. Like, I could look at drafts for 3 years and never list them. And Tina's like, let's get these moving. Like, what's this bag? How long has this been sitting here? And so we work great together. So I would say find somebody who excels in areas that you don't, because it's hard to juggle it all. And I oftentimes have a messy house and I haven't cooked dinner and there are dishes in my sink. Like, that's kind of what takes a back seat. Not as much now because it's just Jay and I, but certainly for years with the kids, something always has to give. Waking up early can sometimes help balance. I spend way too much time on my phone, and I'm always amazed at what a time suck it is. And when I consciously put my phone down and get work done, I'm amazed at what I can get accomplished. So yeah, I'm not really great at balancing things. I think I've just always surrounded myself with good people who compliment me, and I'm very lucky for that. And I work really hard, and I do love what I do. Bethany Len asked, what's the biggest thing you would have done differently when starting reselling? I've said this a million times, but I will say it again. I would have started with my own closet. To this day, I feel like I am backpedaling because there are so many things in my house that I could list. I could not thrift for a year and just go through my house and learn so much about the business without spending a penny outside of my house. That is by far the best advice I can give to somebody. Start with your own stuff. Don't go out and buy things and make your mistakes on inventory that you're purchasing. Use the stuff around you, and you can learn so much about eBay, about Poshmark, about your style, about photographs. You can learn so much by selling things in your own house. So that is my number one. Actually, I have a video that's called What I Would Do Differently If I Was Starting My Business in 2023. And I will link that up here because that is one of the things I talk about, but I talk about all the things that I would do differently if I was starting my business in 2023. And I think you'll like it. I'm gonna answer one more question because I think it's funny, and then we'll move on to another segment. Anna Sutton asks, how do you deal with pushy, aggressive resellers when shopping at the thrift? Sometimes I wonder if I'm the pushy, aggressive reseller. That's why I think this is a really good question. I am pretty chill at the thrift store. I do scour the new racks, and I'm sure I annoy the employees, but I try to be very respectful. At Savers is what comes to mind because it's where I am most of the time. They will grab a section to go put the new items on the rack, and once they walk away, then I'll come over and try to look, because they have it all organized and sorted, and they don't really like when you're going through it when they're actually working on the rack. But when they walk away, I'll look over. I'm sure people can spot me from a mile away just because I'm doing the loop all the time and I'm looking at the new racks, but I'm not aggressive. I don't know. How do I deal with aggressive people? I usually just walk away. I mean, unless it's something that I am like really hell-bent on getting, I don't think there's anything that I would fight for, I guess. I mean, gosh, I guess never say never. If there was like a brand new Louis Vuitton bag, maybe I'd elbow somebody. No, just kidding. I just really believe in thrift karma, and I try not to be crazy aggressive. It happened at the bins recently. I had a Yves Saint Laurent loafer. I happened to know the person on my way out. She was somebody who recognized me from my days on Clubhouse. We said hello earlier in the day. I was leaving and I said to her, oh my gosh, I have this Yves Saint Laurent shoe and I can't find the other one. And she said, I have it. And I was like, no way. And there was no way that I was going to be aggressive about that. She was a little nervous about what to do because she didn't go to the bins that often. So I suggested we flip for it, and we flipped for it, and I lost. And I was like, congratulations, Lauren. And I handed her the shoe. And you can't get upset about stuff because there's always something around another corner. And I never want to be that person. So if people are super aggressive around me, I usually just back up. I usually just go to a different section of the store because I feel like if I get into it with somebody who's being super aggressive, then I'm also being aggressive. So I always just try to be respectful, but I also hold my ground. The one thing that I don't have much tolerance for is if somebody is in my personal space, and I'm kind of a space invader. Like, I don't have many boundaries. I don't mind people being close to me. Let's put it that way. However, if I am shopping and someone is reaching over me or like breathing down my neck, I will definitely just pause and give them a look, and then kind of go back to what I'm doing. I usually don't say anything, or I might say, excuse me, or that sort of thing, but I don't know. I don't let it bother me too much. But that's all for questions. Thank you so much for the Q&A. I will continue to do polls on Instagram. If you have any questions that you would like to be featured in a future Thriftcast video, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get to it. Why don't we move on now to flip of the week? I have to give credit again to my girlfriend, Kim. It was the day of my father's funeral or wake, and she had gone to the thrift store and she called me. She had a doctor's appointment in Boston, and she said, I went thrifting at our store, which I'm dying to get back to. It's one of the Goodwills in Boston that we love to shop at. And she's like, I found some things for you. And she kind of read through to me the things that she had bought. And 3 of those things have already sold. She spent a total of $45. One of them was a pair of mother jeans, and I want to say they were like $12 or $13. And they were the first thing to sell, and they sold for $75. There was also a Free People sweater that sold for $33. And then just a few days ago, there was this Margaret O'Leary cashmere sweater that was on the Margaret O'Leary website. It was a current piece. It was 100% cashmere. It was kind of like a baseball style, like a cream and a pale yellow, but the sleeves were different than the body of it. I'm struggling to find the words here. Anyway, she paid $12.99 for that, and I listed it for $149, and it sold for $110 on eBay. So that was my highest sale and probably my highest profit of the week as well, which was just fantastic. So we're already over $200 in sales from the 4 pieces that she picked up. I can't remember what the last item was, but I think she got 4 pieces for me that day, and it just brightened my day. After that, we were able to go to the bins. I hadn't been to the bins in all of 2023 because of everything going on with my dad. We finally went, and that was a blast. And now we're planning another thrifting trip for next week because she works at the schools and it's April vacation. So we're trying to find a day next week where we can go thrifting together. So I'm excited for that. So thank you, Kim, if you're watching. Now let's talk about my flop of the week. All right, the way that I like to approach my flops is to look at them as learning experiences and see how I can do things differently or better. In this week's flop of the week, it really wasn't the biggest deal, but I had a pre-owned leather Tumi bag that was pretty beat up that we got at the bins months ago, and I think it had been in my death pile for a while. So we finally listed it and we did the measurements, but the buyer wanted a return. I want to say it sold for like $90 with shipping and everything. It was like $110. It was a pretty good sale. And then they opened up a return request. They measured the bottom of the bag So kind of where the stitching was, like the rectangular shape of the bottom of the bag. It was a slouchy leather bag, so the leather went over the side. If you really measured the bottom, it was longer than what they were measuring, but they measured it at 18 inches. And we also measured the top. And again, the leather went over the sides. It had like these two snaps that snapped on the side. So if you held the bag up like this, it was pretty long on top. My buyer said that it was 18 inches at the very most, like 19 and a half. And he showed a ruler on the piece. I don't accept returns on eBay. That is like my general policy. But I do accept returns if I made an error, because I don't want to get what's called an INAD, which is an item not as described on eBay, because it can hurt your account. So I ended up paying to have that shipped back. So I lost money on the shipping to have that returned to me. But because it was a bins purchase, I am not worried about reselling that. And it's ironic because the day that it sold on eBay for $90, I had like a $70 offer on Poshmark. So we're just going to relist that, no big deal. But what we learned from this experience is that sometimes, especially with bags or anything that's questionable, it benefits you as the seller to put your measuring tape right on the garment. So even if your measurements are a little bit off, your buyer sees what you're measuring. So even if we had said 25 inches, but showed that we were measuring the top where the bag was a little bit bigger, my buyer would have seen that that's what we were measuring. So that is something that we have implemented. I ordered a yardstick because it's much easier to put the yardstick down. I actually just recently did a video, 10 reseller supplies for $10 or less. Okay, sorry, my daughter just called from Spain and I have no idea what I was saying. I think I was talking about my flop of the week. The sun's starting to go down, so the lighting's actually maybe getting a little bit better. What we learned from this situation is that we are going to actually show our measurements whenever there is an item in question. So when we relist, you will notice in some of my listings that they will now have the measurements right on the screen. So I think that can be helpful. It's a little security for you as a seller, and that's what we're doing. So that was our little flop of the week, because there are flops every week. There was another person who ordered a pair of Riker. They were new in box that I had purchased at an estate sale, and they sold for $70. And I don't have returns on eBay, like I mentioned, and I felt badly because I'm making an assumption that it was an older woman, because they were like kind of like that older woman style shoe, that comfort shoe. They kind of reminded me of those SAS shoes. And she paid $70 and she just said that they were too big. And then I did not accept that return, but I'm having a little bit of guilt with that. But it was new in box, they were flawless, and it was a good deal. I mean, they retailed for over $140, I believe. So I declined that. Do you take returns on eBay? Sometimes I feel like I should, but I also feel like so many of my returns come from eBay that if I then accepted returns, it would be even worse. And it's always on the higher priced items. I was saying this to Tina, because people have more buyer's remorse if they spend a lot of money and then they end up not liking something. Some people, that's why they don't like to do higher end things. They would rather sell $20, $30 items all day long than list really expensive things that could come back to them. Okay, what's going on in my life? I definitely needed to take a few weeks off before I wanted to come back and like talk about me, because I feel like for so long I was just giving updates on my dad, and I was sad all the time, and I don't like to be sad on YouTube. So everybody here was so incredible. If you happen to miss it, my dad passed away on March 15th. It's almost been a month and I can't believe it. I still really honestly don't think I've processed it. I like really mean that. I'm doing okay. Everyone's been so incredibly nice. Thank you also. If you happen to be watching, I went to my P.O. box. I had sympathy cards from viewers from different parts of the country, like all over. And I was just so touched that somebody would take the time to send me a sympathy card. It was a really hard few months. The priest who did the sermon at my dad's wake was a friend of ours from the North End. He went to college with my brother, and he did such a great job at the funeral, I mean. But he talked about the winter and how my dad's whole journey with cancer, it lasted from December 15th, we found out that the cancer was in his bones because he was first diagnosed in 2020 and had part of his lung removed, but had been pretty much without any complications since, until he started feeling pain in August. And he died March 15th. So it was exactly 3 months, and it happened so quickly. But I was kind of happy that my first update, it was while my dad was still living, and I could just do like a little blurb at the end. And I feel like I'm at the point now where I can actually talk about it without breaking down. So I don't think you ever fully move on after you lose a parent who means so much to you. But things are getting a little bit easier for me. So that's all. I just wanted to say thank you guys for that. But that's why I didn't do a weekly update the past couple of weeks. I just haven't been ready. I'm feeling good today. And I think you all must know that we got a puppy. And I feel like people are probably really sick of hearing about Lumpy. But Lumpy was my dad's nickname in the 70s and 80s, and he had a t-shirt and it said Lumpy's Lounge on it. If I can find the picture, I'll put it up here. One of his buddies gave him that nickname. So we had a dog named Lucky, and then we had a dog named Lulu. We actually picked up Lumpy the day after my dad's funeral, and Lumpy was born the day after Lulu Marie died. Lulu died February 2nd. It was a really bad winter. When I called to inquire about Lumpy, I was told that he was born on February 3rd. So there were all these things that led us to this little love who's napping right now, but I'm gonna go grab him because it's been like over an hour because I stopped to talk to Angie. Life is feeling a little bit more normal. I've been doing Noom. I talked about it briefly, I think last month, but I've been on it since February 3rd, ironically. I just said February 3rd a couple times, but I was just looking back because I'm getting prepared to do a video on my second channel called Time with Tata, which has primarily been mostly about journaling and my fountain pens and stuff like that lately. But when I first started that channel, I very much intended for it to be about my health journey because I just joined Weight Watchers, and then I never really stuck to that. I feel like I owe my community over there an update, and I've been doing Noom and really liking it. I mean, I've done Nutrisystem, I've done keto, I've done Weight Watchers, I've done so many diets, and this is the first one that I really feel like I could literally be on forever. So I won't like get into too much detail about it here, but that's been a really positive thing in my life. I'm gonna do a full review on the other channel, but I'm down like 11 pounds. I really wanna lose 50 pounds. But I would honestly be happy with like 30 pounds. I'd be really happy with 30. 50 would just be like, wow. But I turned 50 this summer, so I really wanted to just be feeling good about entering my 50s. Noom has been great. Lumpy has been fantastic. The weather, it's 74 degrees today. It's the warmest it's been. It's so beautiful. I'm so excited for the warm weather. I feel like I was in a fog the entire winter. I was in a fog the entire winter. Business is slow, and I'm actually okay with it. You know, because I didn't put out as much content on YouTube, it's been the first time in a long time that like every one of my arrows was down. I had less views, I had less subscribers, I had less of a payout. It was just the first time that I really felt this real dip on YouTube. And I know it wasn't like a time to worry about analytics. It certainly was not. It was a time for my family. But I am looking forward to getting back on track on YouTube. I was going to bring a pen up to share with you. Last time I shared a pen with you. I've been really digging the fountain pens, and I know it's so weird. I feel like it's weird that I like fountain pens so much, but it's been my therapy and continues to be my therapy. I'm still doing morning pages, although since we got Lumpy, instead of doing 3 pages in the morning, I'm lucky if I get a page and a half written before he needs me or before I need to shower, because I don't know, like I'm back on a pretty strict schedule. I'm getting up earlier, I'm going to bed earlier, which is actually good. Jay is much more of an early to bed, early to rise kind of guy, and I can spend a lot of time late at night watching YouTube videos or just like wasting time. Also, I don't know if any of you have seen the show Yellow Jackets. It's like Lord of the Flies for women. I don't know why I'm so interested in it. It can be kind of gory, but it's also really great acting. It's got Christina Ricci and Juliette Lewis in it, and it's just been really good. And let me know if you've seen it. So we've been watching that, but I need a new show, and I think it needs to be a little bit uplifting because it has not been. Okay, I think I hear Lumpy squeaking and squawking, so I'm gonna go grab him. Also, let me know if you watched my video with the Amazon video that had the Lumpy cam, because I really had fun doing the Lumpy cam, and if you guys like it, I'm gonna do more of it. I'm thinking that when I go to edit this video, I'm gonna be regretful that I did this whole video with this crazy shadow in the back, but such is life. Let me go grab Lumpy and I'll be right back. Okay, my battery's running out and he just woke up from his nap. I don't think he's ever been in this room before. He's kind of groggy, which is nice because I feel like every time you guys see him, he's a nut. Although see, every time he's always eating my hair. So Lumpy is a cockapoo for anybody who has asked. He went on his very first walk today, right? Did we go for a walk? Yes, and you were very, very tired. He was on his leash, he was doing a great job, and we walked down the hill, and then he came back and he passed out. He's been asleep for almost 2 hours, right? He's very vocal. I don't think he's gonna have a lot of patience for me right now because... What's the matter? Keeps me very busy. It's like having a newborn, back on a schedule and everything. But Lumpy is a love, and thank you for all the Lumpy love. I know there's been a lot of Lumpy content, and I'm sorry if you're like sick of seeing the pooch, but he's just been a light right now, and he was like the perfect thing. I mean, to literally get him the day after we said goodbye to my dad, I can't imagine what the past few months would have been like without him. So he's been such a love. He's such a good boy. You'll be seeing a lot of Lumpy, right? What? What do you smell? He's getting better about giving kisses and not just like straight up biting my face, because that is the hardest part about puppies, is all the biting. But anyways, I will wrap up my little time with Tata portion right here. My battery's about to go, so thank you guys so much for watching. Clearly, I need to talk faster. This is the second episode that my battery has died. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. I will try to be back in a week with another Thriftcast episode. And each week we'll refine it a little bit more. You guys are the best. I appreciate you being here. Love you, and I'll see you soon. Remember, if you want to give Vendoo a try, click the link in my description and save 25% off your first month of service.